In this video, I'm going to walk us through how to do a standard stitch, and then I'm also going to do a top stitch. Standard stitch, stitching the seam allowance in place. So the first thing first, I'm going to just make sure all the settings on my machine feel correct. I want to make sure that I'm doing a straight stitch, not a zigzag. I want to make sure that my needle position is in center position. This should be set at 0. I'm going to do these at about a stitch length 3, and ultimately I want to be doing a straight stitch, making sure that I'm in the green stitch dial and that my feed dogs are there. My flywheel is here, and if I'm going to be adjusting, I need to lift up my presser foot here. So in my samples, I have penned one sample with my pens going in a vertical section, and then one sample being parallel to my salvage. So just a matter of preference on pinning. So I have 2 pieces of fabric that are together. My seam allowance is here, and I want you sewing at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And that 5/8 of an inch seam allowance is going to be the first long line on the throat plate, which is right here. So I'm gonna lift up my press, turn my machine on, lift up my presser foot, put my sample in at 5/8 of an inch, bring my presser foot down, and then I'm gonna just start by stitching. I'm gonna start by taking a couple stitches, and then I'm gonna lift up here to back stitch to lock that stitch in place. Now with my pens going this way, I need to just pull them out as I'm sewing, keeping my sample at 5/8 inch seam allowance. And I reach my end. I don't want to sew off the end of the fabric. I'm going to back stitch, lift up, and there's a cutter here on the side of the machine. And I'm cutting my thread. I'm going to do this again, 5/8 of an inch. For my other sample that has been serged, putting my presser foot down, keeping my fabric running parallel to that 5/8 of an inch line seam allowance. Start by stitching, back stitch. And in this scenario, as I'm going across, I theoretically could sew over my pens, but I am still going to pull those out. Come around, lift up my presser foot, my cutter. My samples have been sewn at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So there's a 5/8 inch seam allowance, 5/8 inch seam allowance. I'm now over to my ironing station. I want you to keep the iron on the silicone plates. If you need steam, it is pressing the button, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open my sample, and I'm gonna press open my seam allowance so it's all flat. I'm gonna start by steaming, and I'm just pumping a little steam. So I often steam away from myself. And then pull back. Objectively, I'm just wanting a nice flat seam allowance. I'm going to do that a second time. On one of your serge samples, I'm wanting you to put your presser foot back down, and we're going to sew down the edge of a seam allowance. So one thing I want you to look at or be aware of is needle position. So in this scenario, if I sew like this, my needle is here on the presser foot. So I can look at the little line on the presser foot to gauge that. Or I can put the serging on the edge of my presser foot, move my needle position to the right, and now it will be in line to stitch. So I'm going to keep the edge of my presser foot as my guide by stitching, back stitch to secure, and back stitch to finish. Take this out. My needle position can stay in the same place. Put my presser foot down, keeping the edge of my presser foot along the edge of my serging. Starting when stopping with back stitching. Take out, cut my presser foot, remove, put my needle position back. But now I have top stitched my seam allowance down. On the back side, on the front side, you are going to see stitches along the outside, but this would prevent, I would use this for possibly a fabric that may have a seam allowance that I want to stay in place and not roll.